Awesome. Thank you for having me, Rick. I appreciate it. And thank you for everyone that's joining today and for those that are going to be watching on a recording. And thanks again for the opportunity. So today's class will be largely focused on property taxes. So I'm going to jump into it just for the sake of time. But we're just around the corner from property tax season. First installment of property taxes is due November 1st. So I figured it would be nice maybe to do a rundown of some of the property tax resources that we have available for you at our company, Fidelity National Title, that are free, that in my opinion, can help guide some of those client conversations you might have around property tax season, whether that be property owners or home buyers. So hopefully you can walk away with some nice resources and you'll walk away with some nice ability to pull some nice reports for your clients. So property tax profile reports like this, and we'll be going into this in detail, an estimated property tax profile report for buyer clients. And once again, we'll go over this in detail, as well as a nice home estimate to show buyer clients what their property taxes look like and some of the closing costs associated with property taxes. And along the way, we'll be covering some of the main concepts of property taxes. Oh, someone said can't hear well. Sorry, Suk. Rick, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I hear you loud and clear.
I hear
Okay,
you.
sorry about that, Suk. So maybe volume issue or something, but hopefully it gets a little bit better for you. Okay, and then along the way, like I said, we'll be covering some general property tax topics to hopefully clarify some of the understanding you already have, or maybe some new topics you haven't heard of. So let's dive into it. So getting started, we'll be covering two resources that ultimately I think are really easy to access through our website, and that is lunatitleteam.com up here at the top of the page. And today we'll be using two of our free apps to generate these profiles and go over them in detail. So what I recommend doing when you're on our website is go to lunatitleteam.com and then go to our Fidelity Tech Tools section right here. Here's how you'll access a couple of our apps that are really great for client conversations around property taxes. So we'll jump into this first example of learning how to generate nice property tax profile reports for your clients, which give them an overview of items like their assessed tax value, and we'll talk about what that is, what their annual tax payment is, and what their current effective tax rate is. So this is a nice overview, as well as a nice itemized overview of their property tax bill. So a really great report if you have a homeowner that wants to see their property tax estimated bill for them and what's included in that. So, and we'll also be doing the estimated property tax profile for buyer clients, which shows most of that same information, but based off of an estimated purchase price. And so this website that generates these reports is called Fidelity Title Pro, which is available in our Fidelity Tech Tools website right here. And so you can see it here, but for future reference, let's say you're coming back to our website and you're like, oh man, I can't remember exactly, which tool did the property tax profiles, but I know I want them. So you can always come in here to our site and search for property tax profile. And what it will do is it'll show you the exact resource that you'll need to access to generate these reports. So you can click on Fidelity Title Pro. You can click this button. It'll take you to the website. And if you don't have an account, because you will need one, you can always click Request Login Info. Enter your name, last name, email. We'll get an account created for you and you'll be on your way. So I'll click Launch Fidelity Title Pro. It'll take us to a website that looks something like this. And then if you don't have an account yet on Title Pro, and you wanted to create one for yourself, you can always come in here and click Create a New Account. That'll take you to a page that looks like this. Simply enter the token Luna and then start creating your account and you'll be good to go. And so for now, I'll just sign in. I already have an account and I'll get us started. Just make sure I can sign in correctly. Let me do this account. Okay, cool. So once you're signed in to Fidelity Title Pro, you'll see a website like this. So let's assume you have a client that owns a property and they wanted a nice property tax profile on their property. So what we can do is enter a property address. I'll grab this address here and search for it as the subject property. So I can search that property address, make sure you have the correct county selected. Of course, you can always search by other items, such as a parcel number. If it's vacant land, search by an owner's name or look for property on a map. In this case, I'll just search for this property address right here. And just a nice reference point, this is a great website for generating general property profiles. So let's say you wanted nice comparable sales, general property details overview, the chain of title, etc. This is a great resource for you. But in this case, what we really care about is the tax information. So if you look on the left side of the screen here, we have this nice menu we can choose from. And this is what we want to generate: a nice property tax profile and an estimated property tax profile. And so a nice clean way of just getting these two reports on their own, in my opinion, is coming into our website here, clicking No Bundle. This will remove all these other items, and come in here and select Property Tax Profile. And to create a nice estimated property tax profile for buyer clients to show them a future estimated tax amount, click this button, and all you need to do is enter in a purchase price. So whatever your buyer client is purchasing that property for. And once you're ready to generate this report, all you have to do is click Get Now. It'll generate the reports for you. I've already generated them, so I'm getting this pop-up, but we'll go to this new page here. So now we have this nice property tax profile report generated. I do have a video on this that shows you how to do it, so if you wanted to watch it again, you're more than welcome to see that. And so we'll go into a bit of detail about these property tax profile reports, exactly what it shows and how you can better explain these to your clients. And so once you have these reports at the top of the page, you'll have the property address. This is what the page we're looking at here. This is always a nice reference number here, this assessor's parcel number. This is a good reference point with your clients. This is an identification number when they are speaking to the county tax authorities and referring to their property, so a nice reference point. But on each of these property tax profiles, one of the best pieces of information is this table here called the current tax information. So first you'll see the tax year that this property tax profile report is for. So this is the 2025-2026 property tax year that we're looking at right now in this profile. The second item that we see is the total taxable value of this property. This is often referred to as the assessed value of a property. And a key distinction, this is different than the market value of a property. An assessed value is usually set based off that initial purchase price. But a very nice feature of property taxes, especially regarding assessed values, is that they are limited in how much they can go up year after year. So Proposition 13, which was passed in 1978, limits the amount that a property's assessed tax value can go up by 2% a year, relative or comparison to a market value, which may go up 10% one year, 8% next year, 7% the other year, etc., etc. The assessed value will stay the same, or sorry, go up 2% a year, which limits how much that property tax bill will go up year after year. So nice benefit of an assessed value, but just a key distinction. When you're looking at these property profile reports, if you have a client that looks at this and says, hey, why is my property only worth $500,000? I thought it'd be way more. You can say, actually, no, this is different. This is your assessed value. This is a number that your property tax payment is based off of, and we'll go into more detail about what that looks like. Next, we have the total current tax amount for this property. This is the actual annual property tax amount that this homeowner is paying, based, once again, like I said, off this assessed value, and we'll go into detail about how this is calculated. But this is a nice number to be able to show your clients to say, okay, at the moment, it's looking like annually you're paying $6,603 a year in property taxes. So if you have a client that's curious how much they're paying based off of their current assessed tax value, this is a number that you can show them here. And finishing off this table in this current tax information, we have current effective tax rate. So sometimes you might have a homeowner that's curious about what their effective property tax rate is, or what an effective tax rate might be in a specific area. So this is a figure here that shows it. And what's nice is we get a nice explanation of what an effective tax rate is. So right here, we can see this highlighted section that says the current effective tax rate is calculated as the total current tax amount here divided by the total taxable value. So in this case, it would be 6,603 divided by this assessed value. So that creates this current effective tax rate percentage here. And so it is worth noting that not every property, even properties next door to each other, will have the same effective tax rate. And we'll go into a bit more detail about why that is in a little bit. But nice way to be able to show their client what their effective tax rate is for their specific property. And so moving down on this profile, another nice piece of information is you can always show your clients the specific agency responsible for their tax bill every year. We'll be going over these profiles and be talking about the different items that are on these, but I don't expect, and I don't think anyone should be an expert on property taxes, of course, but nice to have good resources here to point to if these official resources are needed. So for wherever that property is, you'll have this nice tax agency information where you'll see the parties responsible for this tax bill, a nice phone number to reach out to them, nice information about when this property tax bill became effective, so October 1st in this case, and when the due dates are for this specific property tax bill. Another nice section of these property tax profiles is actually being able to see how this assessed tax value is broken down. An assessed value is essentially a combination of two things: the assessed land value for tax purposes and the improvements made upon that land. So that would be buildings, structures, etc. So those two figures make up this total taxable value. So for this property, the land in terms of taxes is assessed at $417,000. General improvements, meaning the house, the structure, etc., is responsible for $104,000 out of this total taxable value. And then finishing up this table, we get a nice breakdown of how this annual tax amount is broken down in two installments. That's a key understanding for property taxes. For most cases, they're in actuality paid twice a year in two installments, but most of the time, people that have mortgages are going to be paying that through their mortgages. And then finishing up this property tax profile, this is a really great section of these reports, this assessments and bonds section. So this will show an itemized breakdown of a homeowner's property tax bill based off of two things. One, a base levy that every property will experience by being a property in California. That's once again mandated by Prop 13 to be 1% of the assessed value. And so we see the assessed value, like I said, once again here, $522,000. And every property will, in this case, experience a 1% tax on that value. And this, in our profiles, you'll always see here, it'll look something like this: combined ad valorem tax charges. So in this property tax bill, we see that they have a 1% charge on their assessed value here added to their property tax bill. And then on top of that, we see localized itemized assessments. So those would be things like special taxes, mosquito abatement districts, paying for things like emergency services, and sometimes you'll also see things like Mello-Roos taxes or community facility district taxes applied. In these profiles, if there are no Mello-Roos taxes, the nice feature is you'll see that it says no community facility district charges here, meaning there are no Mello-Roos taxes associated with this property. But if you do see those, you would see community facility district taxes somewhere itemized here. But a nice feature of this assessments and bonds section is being able to show a homeowner how much of their bill is being paid just towards the general levy versus how much are for itemized services for that specific property. And so this would be the property tax profile report, being able to show a client some of the key factors that go into their property tax bill each year. What is the assessed value that they're paying property taxes based off of? How much are they paying annually? And what is their effective tax rate? So some key questions that your clients might have about their property tax bill. And on the flip side, we generated the estimated property tax profile report from the same website. Most of the information on this page is the same, except we'll have some additional information because this is an estimate based off of a future sales price for a buyer. When a homeowner buys a purchase or buys a home from somebody, that assessed tax value will change over time. That assessor will reassess the value, it'll raise the assessed value, and as a result, those property taxes will go up. So this report here will show a future homeowner what that would look like for them. So if we look at this top section here, this is the estimated property tax profile report. First, we have the purchase price of the property, $1.2 million. That will also become the assessed tax value for that property. For that first year, that'll be the property tax amount they're paying on. And then secondly, we can move down and see the new tax amount for this property. This went up from the previous amount. So if we look at the previous bill, where the current total tax amount for the same property was $6,603, we see that now for a purchase price of $1.2 million, the taxes have gone up now to $14,689, and we'll see exactly how that happens. The nice part about the estimated property tax profile reports is that they'll also break down these property tax amounts monthly, showing your client if they are getting a mortgage, what those property taxes would realistically look like as a part of their monthly payment. And then once again, we get a new effective tax rate. That was simply a calculation which divided the annual tax amount divided by the assessed value of the property. So in this case, that comes out to 1.224%. And on this estimated property tax profile report, we have a couple of additional unique line items. First, this estimated supplemental line, which we'll get into, and then this escrow months to collect at closing. So first, starting with this estimated supplemental line item here. So for those that are not familiar with what supplemental tax payments are, when a homeowner buys a property, there may be a bit of lag time from when that homeowner purchased the property versus when the assessor gets around to providing a new assessed value for that property. So let's say, for example, someone purchased a property, they've moved in, and maybe it takes 4 months for that property to be reassessed. What would be happening in that 4 months is that person would be paying property taxes based off of an outdated assessed value for the previous owner. So what would happen is in 4 months' time, the assessor would get around, provide a new assessed value, and calculate the difference between what that homeowner was paying versus what they should have paid in property tax. So when that calculation is made, the assessor will provide a new bill to say, hey, this is the amount, the difference that you do owe us for that time you were owning the property. So this line item here shows, based off of when they purchased the property, what an estimated supplemental amount would be in that bill. So if they bought the property in October versus December, how that would shake up in a supplemental tax bill. Really helpful if you're having buyer conversations to be able to show them, hey, this is an additional cost you'll have after you close. Make sure you budget for it. Make sure you be aware and that you will have a big, potentially big payment down the road in a supplemental tax bill. And you also have escrow months to collect at closing. This would be able to show a buyer that if they are getting a loan, what a lender might collect ahead of time to be able to pay some of those property taxes. So dependent on when that first payment is, what they could expect in an additional closing cost to pre-fund an account that a lender could use to pay some of those property taxes. So this is a nice report to be able to show buyer client not only what future property taxes might look like, but then also some things they might need to budget for later on with property taxes. Much better than them not knowing about it at all and then getting a big bill and being surprised about it in that process. And then moving down, we have the same tax agency information, the parcel information we looked at earlier, broken down, in this case, with these two installments based off of a new tax amount here. And then we have the same assessments and bonds section as we did earlier, where we have the nice 1% fee of the assessed value charged here as well as the itemized local assessments and taxes here. But the key difference we see is in these two values right here. This was based off of that old previous assessed value, 1 times that. And then now we have a new assessed value. So we see that this figure goes up. So now ultimately their new assessed value, their property tax bill will go up based off that new purchase price. A nice key feature that you can show a buyer client when buying a new property. So a lot of information that you can see on these reports, but I would say, just mainly focusing on the key items that really go into property taxes. That would be an assessed value, an annual tax amount, and an effective tax rate. Those seem to be the 3 key factors that you'd want to pay attention to, but having an awareness of how to calculate these is essentially 1% times the assessed value, which is the combined ad valorem tax charges, plus all of these local fees here. And like I said, these are unique to this property address, make up this annual tax amount. So nice, helpful feature of this application. And of course, you can always download these to your computer, email these to your client, etc. But let's say you didn't want to do any of these work. That's where title reps come in. Let's say you just had a property address. You wanted a really nice report that you can share with your clients. Feel free to reach out to me. I'll send you a nice report and happy to explain some of the details for you. And moving on now to a different resource to generate nice estimates and be able to show buyer clients what property taxes look like as a part of their monthly payment, as well as some of the prepaid taxes that they might have as a part of that escrow impound account that we talked about a little bit ago. And so this would be part of our Fidelity Agent One app, which once again, you can find on our lunatitleteam.com website in our Fidelity Tech Tools tab right here. And in this case, I'll be generating a buyer monthly payment estimate. Fidelity Agent One will show up right here. I can click launch, and once again, you can request an account from us to be able to generate these estimates. But once you have the app set up on your phone or on your computer or as a website, you can generate really nice buyer monthly payment estimates for buyer clients. It'll show them what their monthly payment would be and what their closing costs would be based off of a purchase price. So let's say that I have a client, and just to preface, you'd want to make sure you're in this buyer tab. at the bottom of the screen here where it says buyer. And all you need to do is enter in a purchase price. So I'll say $1.2 million. You can change most of these here. So let's say you have a client that's doing an FHA loan or putting 20% down, etc. But in this case, what you need to do to effectively show buyer client their new property taxes based off of purchase price is simply come in here and click Add Address at the top left of the screen. From here, you can search a property address. I'll just select this property that we've been working on. And first thing it will do is based off that property address, it'll find the current property taxes that this homeowner is paying. So this is saying based off this property address, the estimated annual property taxes for this property are $6,603. I can click done. And the nice part is once I hit compute, this app has noticed a difference. The purchase price has gone up. What happens as a result is the new annual tax amount and assessed value will increase. This app recognizes that and calculates it for you and says, based off of this new purchase price, here's an estimate of the new property taxes annually. You can click done. It'll plug it in the app for you and calculate a nice monthly payment amount. First, it'll show monthly payment, and you can see this nice green highlighted section, which says taxes right here as well to show the percentage of that overall payment. This is saying that out of this $8,538 a month, 1,221 of those dollars are going towards the payment of property taxes every year. And on top of that, we looked at the fact that there will be some prepaid costs for property taxes. They have to pre-fund a cost with their lender to make sure they have enough to pay property taxes every year. What's nice is we can go to detailed closing costs right here. And we can see that it says 4 months of taxes. So nice reference point to say on top of the monthly payment that you have and what's going towards taxes, you'll even have a closing cost to pre-fund some of those payments for property taxes. And a very nice part about this app is, let's say you wanted to share this with your client, have a nice flyer that you can provide to them. Always look for this share button at the top right of the screen. And then from here, click Send Full Report. It'll take this information, it'll put it on a nice template for you, pre-fill your information from your account, and have all of that same information, such as the monthly payment, the closing costs. So for example, I can see this monthly payment, the amount going towards taxes, as well as some of the prepaid costs and how much of those are going towards taxes again. So once again, 2 great resources, just to be able to have those conversations with your clients. In my opinion, option A of using Title Pro with these profiles is great for clients that are extremely detail oriented. Let's say you have clients that want to know all of the details of their bill. What are the local assessments, taxes, bonds, Mello-Roos, etc. Leverage these reports here because they'll give you a lot of detail. Let's say you have a client that maybe just has some curiosity of like, okay, what of my payment goes towards property taxes. I would lean more on Fidelity Agent 1 just because those reports, in my opinion, are easier to digest. But 2 great resources for you. And then I also wanted to show you that we have great resources on our website for following up, sending a client, and then also nice shareable resources for you as a realtor. So once again, this will be on our lunatitleteam.com website. And we have this nice guides section at the top of the page. And so if you click on that guides section, we have this property tax resources guide. And if you read this guide or send it to a client, we have a nice overview once again showing how property taxes work. Once again, talking about the nature of assessed values, how they're capped at an increase of 2% per year, thanks to Proposition 13. Once again, how that ad valorem base tax rate applies to the assessed value with local assessments as well as the different parties that are instrumental in the creation of property taxes, whether that be the county assessor down to the treasurer tax collector. A nice property tax estimate that your clients can use. Let's say you have a client moving to a different county. We have this calculator that will show estimated effective tax rates, which we covered. So let's say you have a client buying a new home in Orange County, and you can show them a nice estimate of their annual property taxes, like we talked about. And then we have a flyer library for you. So let's say you have a property owner that's buying a property and they're moving in, and you wanted a nice flyer to show them the key due dates of their property taxes. We have something that looks like this, which lays out the property tax due dates and just key distinction as well. It doesn't work the same as January to December. that property tax calendar really starts in July 1st and stretches through June 30th. So nice key distinction that you can show your clients as well as these due dates here. Also nice property tax calendars and impound schedules for buyer clients. Also understanding supplemental taxes. Those are those items that we talked about on these estimated property tax profile reports of supplemental tax payments. That's that one-time payment that will make up the difference in property taxes that a new homeowner should have been paying. And you get a nice flyer that explains what those are. So maybe something you can always provide to your buyer clients at the close of escrow to say, hey, by the way, remember just supplemental tax bills, something you need to be aware of. Here's a flyer, showing you what those are, how they're calculated, etc. This is another nice flyer. What could cause a property reappraisal? So what could cause a change in an assessed value, such as a change of ownership, or even other things like adding square footage to a property. And then if you have clients that speak another language, we have these in Spanish as well. And then let's say you as a realtor, it's been some time, maybe you wanted to get a refresher on how you generate those property tax profile reports. We have two nice videos here. So one on Fidelity Agent One, that's the app that we showed, which generates those buyer monthly payment estimates. And then the video on Fidelity Passport, which is now called Title Pro, how to generate these nice profiles that look something like this. So ultimately leverage lunatitleteam.com for property tax season this year. I know property taxes ultimately can be, a little bit overwhelming because one, the property tax calendar is a little bit wonky and there's a lot of math that goes into it. But ultimately, I would lean on these resources to at least provide some nice estimated basic information for your client. But ultimately, in my opinion, these should be nice informational guides to, help navigate your clients to the experts. If they really do have questions or concerns about their bill, make sure you're also sending them to the right authority. And that's where this guide comes in, for example, as well. So let's say you have a client that has an issue with their assessed value. You would need to know which party to go to. So in that case, who handles what with property taxes could be a good resource for you. So if you have a client that has an issue with their assessed value, you'll know you need to send them to the county assessor. If your client has an issue with what their total tax amount is, you need to send them to the auditor controller. Versus if you have a client that has an issue with their property tax bill or needs to pay that bill, you would need to send them to the treasurer tax collector. So just another key distinction of knowing which parties to send to when there are official answers needed. So leverage these two, have the balance of being able to provide some nice informational resources for your clients or at open houses, listing presentations, whatever it may be, and then knowing which parties to connect to when it's needed. So that's it for today. I think we're right at 10:30. Happy to stick around if there's any questions, but that is it for today.
All right, thank you, Grant. So Gary and Sue, do you have any questions before we end today's session?
No, I think I'm good. Appreciate it, Grant.
Yeah, thanks for coming, Gary. Great seeing you and hearing your name.
Oh, I guess I do have one question.
Yeah.
When will this video be available, or is it best just to go to your website?
It'll be available by tomorrow.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. Take care.
Thank you. And let me know if you have questions. Like happy to anyone on the recording, if you wanted me to sit down and go over one of these reports with you so you feel really strong, talking to your client, I'm more than happy to do that in person or on the phone. Just let me know.
All right, great. Okay. Well, hey, Grant, thanks again
Yeah.
for another great presentation, and we will see you next time.
See ya. Thank you, Rick. Bye, everyone.